You're listening to the Kitchen Confession Podcast with Chef Mary Mamalidi.
What makes up a superfood?
It's just basically, it's because it's a concentrated form of nutrition. I think that's why it's called a superfood. It's like you can take 1 teaspoon of this superfood and it provides a lot of nutrition, like a lot coming out, tiny little bit. So I think that's why. And they're just super healing. Read about them and see what they do because they all offer very different benefits. By all means, maybe just go to your local health food store and ask for a sample of it and be like, okay, I want to try spirulina. I've never tried it before. Let me see what this is all about. Chaga is really good for the immune system. Lion's mane is really good for brain function. So the different ones that you can rotate with. My cooking style is find ways to include the most amount of nutrients into one meal as possible.
I'm Mary Mamalidi, and you're listening to the Kitchen Confession Podcast. Today I'm speaking with Annie. She's a holistic nutritionist that's passionate about using food as a way to heal. Hey, Annie.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Welcome.
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Maybe we should start with telling everyone a little bit about you, Annie. Maybe even help us understand the difference between holistic nutritionist and maybe naturopath.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a question that a lot of people tend to ask because they don't exactly know what a holistic nutritionist does. So just to give a little bit about myself, my background is actually in science. I had a passion for the human body and just how it functioned just all through my teen years. And I really wanted to pursue that in school. And then after doing 4 years of university, I was like, I don't know if, another 4 years of med school plus, doing your residency, all that stuff was really for me. So I moved on to actually marketing, which is a complete switch. And then I found my way back to actually the human body and I have always had a passion for nutrition because I've been an athlete my whole life and I've always been into food and finding ways to fuel the body. So getting into holistic nutrition was a great way and a segue from science into the nutrition realm, but using it from a natural standpoint. So as a holistic nutritionist, we look at the human as a whole. So we take into account not only the person's diet, but their stress levels, how they're sleeping, their spiritual, their soul, everything is kind of all encompassing with an individual. So we take all of those factors into account when creating a protocol or a diet plan for their specific individual needs. Mm-hmm. A naturopath, I think, is a little bit more, they believe in all the same stuff. I think they study a lot longer than we do. And, but they do parallel with us. They, supplementation, which we do as well, but they are a certified doctor in that sense. So they're more in depth with it. So we could definitely work side by side. I actually work at a naturopath clinic and it's one of those things where she'll see clients. And then when it comes to the dietary aspect, she's like, absolutely take on that role. You can totally do this. So they complement each other very, very much so.
They definitely do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I guess the other kind of thing is naturopaths generally are covered by insurance. And unfortunately, holistic nutritionists, we're not there yet, but I think there is more awareness coming to this whole industry, just in general with the media, with people becoming a lot more aware of what they are putting in their bodies and just kind of finding natural methods, to medicine, which I believe we do need Western medicine 100%. We need doctors and we need that. But I think a lot of things can be helped or cured with natural methods without having to always use medication as an option.
Well, I mean, now that you mentioned that, so with all the new health trends that are out there now, who researched them? How does this even get started?
Well, I think that's where a lot of stuff you have to take with a grain of salt because it's a lot of stuff is very, media driven and it's you have to look at where the research is coming from. So that becomes something you have to do on your own. You have to look at the research and if a new trend comes out, you can read it on the, front page of Instagram or whatever. And you have to actually when you go to Google and you're going to look into it, you can't just find the first article that pops up. You have to go on to scientific journals and see, okay, is there evidence-based research behind this trend? Some of them could just be, millions of years of people have been doing this. So it's kind of just become accepted, but some of it is becoming a lot more new age and kind of, okay, we need to actually find out how many studies have been done. Has this been a long-term study? How many, how validated are these papers? So you have to kind of do that research for yourself. when it comes to that. So I know a lot of times when you kind of like I follow a lot of different bloggers and different websites and different nutritionists that post a lot of these articles on the new health trends, and they will do a lot of that research too. And they'll say like they spend hours researching all the different PubMed articles, and then they come to their own conclusions. So it's also on an individual basis what you think and what you want to believe as well.
Do you think a lot of it is trial and error?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So when it comes to like, superfoods, for example, as we talk about health trends, a lot of it has to be, you have to look into your own health issues. You can't just read something and be like, oh, I need to try this because it's claiming to make me a superhuman. It's like, well, no, if you've got X, Y, and Z health issues going on, this actually may be more detrimental to what you're trying to cure. So you have to absolutely do your own research as to what is going to work with you and your body. And that sometimes does mean working with a natural healthcare practitioner.
The first game we're going to play is this or that.
The choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with
Morning or evening?
Morning.
Burger or hot dog?
Burger.
Netflix or cable?
Netflix.
What's worse, laundry or dishes?
Oh, dishes.
See, me, it's laundry.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm surprised. All the cooking
honestly.
that we do, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm forever washing dishes. It's like you get all excited and you create all the stuff in the kitchen. You're like, oh my God, you have to consistently wash dishes. Like,
Okay, toilet paper, over or under?
over. Funny enough, side note, I actually did a Twitter poll on that long time ago.
So did I.
Like I legit asked people on Twitter, I think this is probably like going back 8 years ago now, like what people choose. Cause that's like, it's a big thing. It's like
really
a deal
is.
breaker. Like I can't live with under. Yeah.
What makes up a superfood?
I think that it's because it's a concentrated form of nutrition. I think that's why it's called a superfood, is that it's just this very concentrated form of healthy vitamins, minerals, or whatever it is that this superfood is trying to attain for your health. And it's just in a concentrated form. So it's like you can take 1 teaspoon of this superfood and it provides a lot of nutrition, like a lot coming up tiny little bit. So I think that's why, and they're just super healing.
What are some superfoods that we can talk about? Like, would blueberries be considered a superfood?
Like, I mean, I guess that's up for interpretation, right? Would I call it a superfood? Absolutely, because blueberries are fantastic. They are a great source of antioxidants, and it's a great fruit to consume because they are low on the glycemic index, and they do have a lot of antioxidants that fight the free radicals. So I would consider that a superfood. Absolutely. I would consider any green vegetables a superfood because they each individually have their own like nutrients and minerals and vitamins that just create such a great environment for health to thrive in the body. And like I said, you have to eat for what's going to work for you. So, cruciferous vegetables are fantastic. They help detoxify the liver and they're super great to eat. But I mean, if you have thyroid issues, you might have to be a little wary sometimes with those fruits and with those vegetables. But it's like anything in moderation, right? Like even if you're healthy, you shouldn't be eating a full head of kale every single day. Like you should rotate through your vegetables and try to eat in season as well. And like, I think that's very important. I think that's what people lack is just food rotation. And I'm sure you see this as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're creatures of habit, right? We get stuck on eating the same things because we hear it's so great. You hear like a superfood is so great, or this new health craze of whatever food is next on the trend list. And it's like, you need to be wary of that and be like, okay, yeah, it's great. And I think it's being highlighted in that moment, and it still is going to be a great food next year or the year from now. Like the nutritional value of a piece of kale is not going to change in 2 years from now, but it became such a craze, because everyone was using kale all of a sudden, right?
Well,
and
the minute
quinoa
Dr. Oz puts it on his show,
yeah,
these things are flying off the shelves. Like jicama last year.
Right.
I've eaten jicama for a while, but jicama suddenly last year, it was like people were just knocking each other out at the grocery store to grab the last jicama.
That's so funny. I know. I think it's because of this whole low carb trend too. So it's like people viewed it as like an alternative to maybe having like potatoes because it kind of resembles a potato. So I think that's probably why that became very popular. I mean, it's a great vegetable, absolutely. But it's just funny how it becomes such a trend in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I was standing in front of the last one. I'm not kidding you. No joke. And this woman's like,
so
she's
funny.
watching me. So I smiled. And then all of a sudden she's like, you're standing there. Are you going to take that last one? Because if not, I'll take it.
That's
I thought, are you
hilarious.
serious? Are we going to have to, fist fight and duke it out here? Like, I don't know what was happening.
Yeah. And I think the other issue is people become bored of the food. When you overdo it of like, you're eating it every day, suddenly then you get so sick of it and you never want to eat it again. So you want to also avoid that, right? Because you want to be able to love food and always bring good nutrition to you. You don't want to get sick of eating green vegetables because you're just overdoing it. So
It's true. It's true.
then you revert back to the foods that you shouldn't be eating, which is, it's natural, I think.
You know what? We tapped a little bit on this. Do you think people in North America are micronutrient deficient?
I 100% think so. We live in a society where everything is so heavily processed. It's all about convenience. And honestly, I think it's just lack of awareness for a lot of people. I think we've just become so accustomed to this. And this is what the media portrays to us. And like, this is what we are like, it's all about that, going to the grocery store and picking up whatever's easiest and most convenient. Because most people live a very fast paced, high stress, life where they don't have time to really be considering their meal. So it's like, oh, okay. So I heard this is low fat. This is healthy. This is healthy. So they buy a lot of these box products, which lack so many vitamins and minerals. And, even though they say some of this stuff is enriched or whatever, it's synthetically enriched. It's not the true nutrients that are coming from the soil that are embedded in these fruits and vegetables. Right. So, I think we definitely are lacking a lot of that if you are just eating a very conventional, diet without the awareness of what it is you need to put in your body to fuel it, to give it the proper nutrition. Probably one of the number one complaints amongst people is like, they think, okay, I have to eat organic, so everything has to be organic, or I have to completely change everything now. It's like, well, no, let's start with small steps first of all. So I think a good guide that I give to a lot of people is the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So it's a list that is put out every year of the top 15 foods, so the Clean 15 that are safe to consume, conventionally grown, meaning that they aren't heavily sprayed, they aren't genetically modified, that they're more safe to eat than if you are going to choose to buy conventional produce. Now, the Dirty Dozen is a list of 12 foods that, as the name implies, are very heavily sprayed, generally always genetically modified, and just you should really, really try if you can and if it's feasible for you to buy organic, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to achieve health, you don't want to be eating like, okay, you change your diet, you're eating healthy, that is a great step. And like I said, baby steps, but you don't want to be adding back in those toxins that you're now getting from your food. So you might be eating like all these healthy foods, but then if they're just like laden with all these herbicides and pesticides, you're now putting that toxicity back into your body that you're trying to get rid of, right? So it's just being mindful of that. And even if you can only buy one thing, it's like, even if you can, okay, you know what? I eat, for example, I think strawberries, I don't know if they're still at the top of the list, but they have been at the top of the list for a while. I think there's over 40 herbicides and pesticides found on conventionally grown strawberries. So that's a lot. So if you're eating a lot of strawberries, especially in the summer months when they are more available, if you're eating them like on a weekly basis or a daily basis, you definitely want to try and aim to buy them organic, or like the best option actually in the summer and spring is to buy local when you have local produce available to us at farmers markets. Because generally a lot of local farms, even though they may not be certified as organic, because to be certified as organic it's quite the process and it's very costly. So a lot of these small farms won't go through that, but they actually do practice organic farming methods. They will, grow their stuff with very minimal herbicides and pesticides. They grow natural. They're not GMO. They use good source soil. If they have animals at their farm, they're treating their animals very well. They're ethically raised. So it is good to be able to buy local when it is accessible to you.
I thought I heard angels singing when you mentioned these lists to me. Where do I find these magical lists of Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen?
Honestly, you just Google it. It's the environmental working group that puts it out. So I think it's ewg.com. I don't know the exact website, but yeah, just Google it. Dirty 15.
That could open up a couple of websites you don't want to open up.
Well, maybe put environmental working group.
There we go.
Dirty Dozen list. Make sure.
I'm Mary Mamaliti, and you're listening to the Kitchen Confession Podcast. Today we're talking to Annie about power foods. She's a holistic nutritionist that's passionate about using food as a way to heal. Ashwagandha, chaga. I mean, aside from having really, really cool names, what does that stuff do for you? Because I see it all over. I do a lot of cooking, but some of the stuff I just get lost in it. Like, what is spirulina supposed to do for you?
It provides, it's just like a very concentrated source of like iron, protein. It's really good for vegans because it's just like, it comes from the ocean. It's just a very naturally occurring thing that comes from the ocean. So it's very high in
It's
iron.
an algae, right?
And protein. Yeah. Yeah. So like I know it's very high in iron and protein. It obviously carries a lot of other nutrients within it. I'm assuming iodine, things like that. Ashwagandha is actually, it's a really good herb, but once again, you have to be able to take that according to what you're trying to achieve with your own health issues. So chaga is a medicinal mushroom. Like mushrooms are great in so many ways, and because they are a whole food, you can't really go wrong with it unless you have an allergy. That's the other thing to consider too. Unless you have some sort of allergy, you can't really kill yourself with foods unless you are deathly allergic. But foods are, you can't go wrong with it. So if you're eating a whole food, or when it comes to the mushrooms, I know a lot of them are in powdered form or they come in capsules. Absolutely. I would say absolutely chaga is really good for the immune system. So, I definitely in the wintertime especially, I'll brew a big pot of it and just have it every single day. And, because chaga...
Is there caffeine in any of these?
No, the medicinal mushrooms, no. They do sell the mushroom coffee, which does have caffeine in it. But they have, it claims to have less caffeine than a regular cup of coffee. But it also has the healing powers of these mushrooms. So if you want to do your research on the mushrooms, like look up each individual mushroom and read about them and see what they do, because they all offer very different benefits. But I know chaga is really good for the immune system. Lion's mane is really good for brain function. So the different ones that you can like rotate with.
I'm glad you brought up allergies to some of these items, because we just tapped into bee pollen.
Yeah.
So everyone knows about bee pollen. If you haven't, you're going to hear about it. It's been, it's everywhere. And I went to go get a smoothie one day and they're like, do you want bee pollen in it? I've never had it, but I asked them a couple of questions and the person serving me couldn't answer them.
Right.
Which was shocking to me. So turns out that bee pollen, which I found out later, is if you have seasonal allergies, it can actually trigger the effects of seasonal allergies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's another thing you got to be wary of, right? Like, for example, you hear all about bee pollen, how great it is. And like, I personally use bee pollen. I do remember the first time I did take it, it did give me a bit of an itchy throat. I'm like, oh, do I have an allergy to this? And I do take it now.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, I do take it now and I'm okay with it because your body can change and you can outgrow allergies, especially like seasonal ones. Like I know they can kind of go in 7-year cycles, but
that's right.
So if you have a severe allergy to bees or whatever, absolutely do not take bee pollen, but if you think that, okay, like I think most people in life have been stung by a bee at some point, but I think you would know if you have a pretty bad allergy to it. So, and if you're very unsure, then just don't take it. You're not really losing out on not having bee pollen. There's so many other things out there that you can do to benefit your health without having to take one specific superfood if you're not sure. Okay,
we're going to move on to rapid fire. If you could have a superfood power, which would you choose?
A superfood power?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I would have to say just like to not age, like to live forever and not age.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
Like
I'm with you on that one.
I just don't want to look like I'm getting older. And I don't want my body to feel like I'm getting older. I just want to like stay youthful forever.
Well, I know you like to eat healthy, but is there something that you can't resist on your cheat day?
Oh, I sugar. I love chocolate. It's so bad. And I know all the bad effects of sugar, refined sugar that is, but yeah. I have such a sweet tooth and I work so hard at curbing that. But some days it gets the better of me and it's just, yeah.
What technique are you currently trying to master in the kitchen?
Recipe creation.
Favorite ingredient to cook with?
Ooh, that's a hard one because there's so many I could list. My favorite ingredient to cook, and it's supposed to be rapid fire, and here I am taking my time. Oh my goodness, I don't even have an answer for that. I'm trying to think.
Okay, which one are you most afraid of? Ingredient.
I mean, I don't like cilantro. I hate cilantro, so I think I'm definitely afraid of it.
Oh, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. No, I don't even want to touch it.
Yeah. Favorite snack?
Say like coconut yogurt and fruit.
Oh, okay. Music in the kitchen?
Yes.
What music?
I listen to all different kinds depending on my mood. I like anything that's like uplifting. Sometimes I like some good jazz music. It really depends on the vibe you're feeling in the kitchen that day.
Justin Timberlake brought sexy back. What would you bring back?
Honestly, I always said I would love to live through the 50s. Like, I love the nostalgia of it, and I love going like the drive-in, and I just love the simplicity of that era. I think it would be something, the good parts of it, that is.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So
I could do that.
I would love to bring back, like those like outdoor restaurants where they like roller skate up to your car. I mean, I've never
Funny, that's what I
experienced it,
pictured right now.
but yeah, I think they have some of those in the States, but I would love to like that to be like an everyday thing. It'd be kind of cool.
How did you get started? Because I do know that you love to cook. You mentioned to me before.
Yes.
How did you get started within the kitchen?
So I think I mean, obviously when you go to university, first of all, you're kind of forced to learn how to cook. So that was step one back in the day. And then I think just my when I eventually went to school to do holistic nutrition, it just opened up this whole door of like, oh my goodness, like there's like endless possibilities of ways to heal yourself with food that, I want to learn this. I want to try this. I want to experiment. And you start seeing all these different recipes and it's like, oh my God, I need to do this. So it just kind of, a little bit of self-taught, a lot of YouTube, a lot of trial and error. And I think it just, my background is Italian. So, food is very, very big in our culture. Yeah. So I think that's always been part of it as well, is just always being surrounded by food and just the whole family aspect of food and just how food brings people together. But for me, it's finding alternative ways of like healthier ways of having that.
Do you have a signature recipe that you could probably share with us?
I'm trying to think now, because like I've been experimenting, especially now with this program that I'm in, I've been experimenting with so many different recipes. And actually, one of the assignments was to come up with our own sort of creation. So there's this one recipe that I absolutely love. It's like I'm not vegan, but it is a vegan pad thai. So it's friendly for vegans, which is great. But there's also the alternative to add in chicken or your own source of protein if you so choose to do so. That's what I like, recipes that are versatile that you can do for anyone, like different needs. Like, so it doesn't have dairy in it, doesn't have gluten in it. So it kind of covers all the common allergens. And it is vegan. So yeah, it's a pad thai recipe that includes a lot of quote unquote superfoods. And then you can, like I said, customize it however you like. Maybe
walk us through it, like give us an idea. So would you use the actual noodles?
No. So this is where a lot of the substitutions come in, and they're great substitutions because they taste so amazing. And maybe for someone who's used to eating regular all the time, like regular pad thai all the time, it might be a little bit of an adjustment, but it still tastes amazing. So I actually spiralize sweet potato for the noodles.
I've done it. It's so good.
And they're crunchy and they're so full of nutrients. And honestly, once you put the sauce on, I think it tastes great. And then if you really don't like the idea of sweet potato, there are options for healthier noodles. Like, if you are gluten-free, there's gluten-free noodles, quinoa noodles, whatever the case may be. Like, you can like honestly play around with that so many different ways, whatever suits your needs. I actually as well add in sometimes kelp noodles, which some people might be like, whoa, but honestly, kelp noodles take on the flavor of whatever it is that you're cooking it with. So you don't even know that you're eating like a seaweed. They don't taste like anything other than just like a noodle. So it's just a great way to add extra nutrition into it. So then I also add, I'll like do shredded cabbage in there, some red pepper, cauliflower, like small bite-sized cauliflower bites, some broccoli. And then the best part is the sauce. And the sauce, like the base of it is like almond butter. And if you're dealing with certain health issues, like I'll use like flax oil. It's a great source of healthy fats, or you can use olive oil. And it's just got a lot of like, and then there's like tamari in there, which is a fermented version of soy sauce, which is a healthier version to the regular soy sauce, things like that. So there's so many switches you can make.
I do prefer the tamari over the soy sauce.
Yeah, see, there you go. Because soy sauce is obviously, it's very, very high in sodium. And I don't know, for me, it tends to give me a headache.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. So yeah, no, there's, like I said, a lot of these recipes, like typical recipes, you can find substitutions with. And then if you like peanuts, not to say that peanuts are bad, but if you prefer to have a different nut, chop up like, some almonds or chop up some Brazil nuts and put them on top. And it still gives that nice crunchy texture and that nutty flavor that you might be missing with the peanuts or, whatever. So there's alternatives. And then even with the almond butter in the sauce, you could sub that out for cashew butter. Or if people have a severe nut allergy, do sunflower seed butter. There's lots of alternatives to this.
So if you had to describe your cooking style, what would it be?
My cooking style is like exactly how I described it. Find ways to include the most amount of nutrients into one meal as possible. So I'm always finding alternatives, like whether it's topping my meal off with something, or in the salads, I love, like in the summertime, I love fresh salads because we have a garden. So I grow kale and all that stuff. So I literally pick my greens fresh, but just adding the most amount of nutrients. So adding nuts, seeds, hemp hearts, whatever, that is obviously flavors are going to work well together. But the most things you can kind of get away with that are super healthy with still tasting really good. So, like I tend to cook very, fairly healthy, I'd like to say, and just finding those alternatives to all the foods that are not so great for us.
This is around the time when I ask my guests to share their kitchen confession with me.
Okay. So, and it's funny because it's almost like I know better, but then I still did it anyways. So I was making the trendy mushroom coffee, and I put a bunch of superfoods and stuff in there, and I blend it up, and I didn't want to get out my big Vitamix, which has a nice venting system because you can put very hot liquids in there. So I decided to use my little mini magic bullet that I bought for small things like this. Well, the hot water was a little too hot and I was blending it, and I don't know if anyone knows what happens when you put hot water in a blender that doesn't have a ventilation system. Oh yeah, it exploded. Like, I'm talking blinds, ceilings, cupboards, stove, fridge, you name it. Like, I think it even ended up on the kitchen table. Like, it was everywhere. And I was like, and not to mention I was completely covered, and this is as I'm getting ready to go to work. It was quite the disaster. So,
oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm laughing.
No, it's actually very funny because you know what? Things like that, they can be cleaned up. It's a little annoying because you still find remnants of it months later. You're like, oh, I guess I missed a spot. I think that's some coffee flaked on here. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm lying because I'm that person that laughs when someone falls, including myself.
Yeah.
So yeah. I feel terrible, but I can't help myself.
No, it is very funny. You can only laugh about these things because, at the end of the day, it's what it is, and that's what's going to happen. There's always going to be a disaster in the kitchen of some sort. As long as no one ends up getting hurt, then
Exactly. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So lesson learned.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
No problem. I've since bought a little handheld mixer frother thing for that, so I don't have to bring out my whole blender every time, but I can mix up yeah.
See, we live and learn. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was a lot of fun, and I've learned so much.
Oh, I'm glad. That's great. That's all I want to do is just educate. I feel like, we have so much knowledge, and I just want to share it with everyone, and
Well, that being said, so if someone they have any questions for you, reach out to you, do you want to let them know where they can find you?
Absolutely. They can email me at kicsinthekitchen@gmail.com. I think you're probably going to post it, but it's the word kicks, KICKS, and then just the letter N, and the kitchen @gmail.com. And that comes from, I know you're probably going to ask, I have a ridiculous obsession with shoes and a ridiculous shoe collection. So it just kind of went, and because I'm, in the kitchen all the time, it's my kicks, like my running shoes, and the kitchen.
It's that time. We've reached the end of another show. Be sure to visit kitchenconfession.com for more recipes and foodie finds. I'd like to thank producer and editor Matt Agnew, and I'm Mary Mamalidi. See you at the next episode.